demonstrate this loyalty. And in their minds, one of the best ways to do it is by becoming an accomplice in the destruction of one's own people. And so we face this phenomenon, and this book, written by Chika Onianu, or Chika Oniani. The name of the book is, and it has a very raw title. The name of the book is Capitalist Nigger: The Road to Success, a Spider Web Doctrine. Now, interestingly, this book was given to me a few years ago by a member of the National Security Services who was a personal security detail of the Prime Minister of this country. I will not say which Prime Minister. But this book, in my opinion, so perfectly, so accurately encapsulates this state of mind that so many black people today in the 21st century still suffer from. And I want to read for you a couple passages from it. And in this chapter here, that is entitled White Masters, Black Slaves. It is chapter 9 on page 83 of this great book. And when I read it, even though, of course, it is in a global context, I want you to apply it to Caribbean societies, in particular Trinidad and Tobago contemporary society in the 21st century now. And to me, the language is quite strong. But I want you to listen carefully, and I want you to understand. It says, blacks have conditioned themselves to the status of economic slaves and illiterates. We lack understanding of economic history or business techniques. We are like magnets attracted to our oppressors. The more we are oppressed, the more we gravitate to that individual or individuals, that group or groups that are doing the oppressing. We play the victim game, always the victim and never the oppressor. From the time the Caucasian came to Africa in the 1600s till now, we are always the group to offer hostility to our conquerors. Now let me just put a bookmark for a short second. Remember, think of it in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, 21st century society. Think of it in the context of post-colonial slave societies. Think of it in the context of the plantation society, or even the plural society, or the Creole society. Think of it in the context of a West Indian setting. I continue. And even at this late hour, we seem to lack the intelligence necessary to examine the ramifications of our actions since then. We are rooted to our basic victim instinct. Accept the oppressor in your midst, make him extremely comfortable, give him all your respect and all your possessions, create an aura of invincibility around him, accept his mistreatments, disrespect, looting of your possessions, disrespect of your woman, but then turn around to complain about his unfairness. Today in Africa, if you are Caucasian, you are God's incarnate. In Africa, if you are Caucasian, it means being the following: Europeans, British, French, German, Italian, Israeli, Russians, Turkish, Greek, Belgian, Nordics, Australians, and New Zealanders. Asians, Chinese, Indians, Pakistanis, Japanese, and of course, Americans and Canadians, in brackets, excluding blacks, of course. He says, if you are one of these groups, you are accorded the respect and worship reserved for God. Once again, I impress upon you to think of this in a Trinidad and Tobago context, a Caribbean context. If you are one of these groups, you are accorded the respect and worship reserved for God. Now this is where, to me, it gets even deeper. He says, being seen in the company of a Caucasian person accords you instant respectability and credibility. It accords you intelligence. If you want to be successful, bring in a Caucasian partner. If you had been having difficulty securing a contract, send in your new partner, and then you will have an easy ride. The highest powers, whose secretaries would not even accept your calls, would be happy to meet with your partner. He would be invited to functions that you would not dream of being invited to. And you may have to tag along with him if you wanted to be accorded and associated with respectability and credibility. Even the amount of bribe demanded from you will decrease at least by 20% because you are now considered trustworthy. This is so, I mean, if you don't laugh, you might cry, or if you don't cry, you might laugh, because it's so deep. It so accurately details the reality of some of the social dynamics that exist in our Caribbean societies. And it is so true. You hear all these stories in Trinidad about a friend getting someone to go and buy land for them because they wouldn't sell it to the person themselves. Or you have a colleague or an associate, and you align yourself with them, and they open the doorways of business for you. He continues as I close. Today's white master, black slave mentality started when the Caucasian came to Africa with a Bible and a gun, and we had our own beliefs in the Supreme Being, the creator of all things, and everything we did. We called upon the Supreme Being to bless us and the event that was to take place. But when the Caucasian came, we were easily convinced that our God was not the right God, that we were heathens and we were unbelievers. Our names were not good enough. But today, if you want to be a Christian, you have to answer to an English name. You have to be a John, a Paul, a Peter, a Michael, a Charles, a Anthony, or any of the other names that you would answer to before becoming a Christian. And he goes on, of course, to explain this phenomenon. And throughout the book, throughout the whole book, he so accurately describes this reality, which we in Trinidad and Tobago need to be so mindful of, because so many of us are falling into this same trap.